Welcome to the ATG podcast, Knees Part 2. Knees Over Toes guy here. I run ATG. Keegan runs ATG for coaches. So give us a 60-second recap on what that is, because rarely do I properly introduce that.
ATG for coaches is a chance for coaches to actually be endorsed in this system, to learn the system inside out, to understand how it works, why it works, to be able to reverse engineer it, to be able to explain it to an athlete. It's one thing to do it. It's another thing to teach it. So, we want to have people around the world who we feel are able to get this message across and use these techniques to the fullest. That's basically what we do. There's a lot of great people, great coaches with all different sorts of specializations. So it's a real community, as well as, obviously being the home of ATG knowledge for coaches as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like ATG. The goal is results and personal touch, and making that something that's accessible. So like ATG is $49.50 a month, no long-term contract, half off the first month. That's not some elusive thing. I've seen a lot of coaching that's $600 a month or more. I mean, for real, and some people do it, but it's like, the idea is making results, really accessible and personal. And like how we do the form coaching, I'm still not aware of anyone coaching form videos for that low of a price for like a personal training app.
No.
And then it's same with ATG for coaches, meaning I've had so many friends, and they graduate $100,000 or more in debt and don't feel confident. They don't feel like they can get results. And then they fuck around with ATG for coaches, and within a month they're like getting the best results ever. So it's the same concept. I actually don't know the current pricing.
Yes, it's $100 a month. And yeah, I mean, I've invested tens of thousands of dollars. I did the traditional education, etc. And what's really one of the things that's unique is, what you're doing with the ATG Pulse, like actually having direct contact with the founder of the system, and, the interactive nature of what we're doing. I don't know anyone else who's kind of doing that sort of thing in coach education, which I think is quite special in itself.
Yeah, one of the guys from ATG for coaches just messaged me, and he gave a famous professional athlete like a workout that blew their mind, and this is someone who had been through traditional education and paid the hundreds of thousands of dollars only to not be able to get results. And now, anyways, we did a good little intro there. In the first knee episode, we talked about reverse step-ups, ATG split squats, Nordics. Reverse step-ups and split squats are progressed throughout zero, dense, and standards. Nordics, we like to prep with full knee bend and decent flexibility first in zero, then in dense. We just work on the way down. Then in standards, we actually get into full Nordics. So that is a previous episode, not to mention the ankle episode. That's a key part of knees as well. So that's what we've established so far. Ankle numbers and really stability numbers for the knees. But if I could only do one exercise to jump higher, it would be cheeks to sneak squats with a slant board. So let's break that down. I know you've been doing some of the body weight for super high reps. I think you've even tried single leg. So like in our advanced zero, mastering your body weight 100 reps is no joke. Tell me about that. You've put like some top athletes even through just this concept of like rebuilding your squat.
Yeah, and this has been like a major breakthrough. Like after 20 years of kind of training and coaching and being obsessed about this stuff, I dismissed the slant because it hurt my knees. The irony is that so many of us reject this solution because, well, powerlifters don't do it and weightlifters don't compete on a slant. And, so it's not really, you can opt in or opt out if you want. And I chose to opt out because it hurt my knees. And so I could get strong with other stuff. I could lift heaps of weight on other stuff. But then, this is such a humbling exercise, and you can see it. Like I put a guy on the slant board who ran 10:10 as a 5'7" white guy, one of the fastest pound for pound and for his height in the world, next to other players, rugby players who had knee pain, and just seeing them go at body weight. And we went for like 20 minutes of just I go, you go on the board. There were 4 of the guys. I think there were 3 boards, and it was just like, just keep getting back on the boards and go, go, go. And I would say the guy who ran the 10:10 would have done 3 times as many reps as, the other guys. And the other guys were still world-class
he looked
athletes.
rock solid. And I remember one of those old videos, and some of the weaker guys looked like the hunchback of Notre Dame, meaning they quite literally could not put the pressure on the patellar tendons. The patellar tendons actually can grow and develop. They have anabolic properties. just like muscles have anabolic properties. Now, what we're seeing is that people after zero, so in base zero, we're just trying to build the ATG split squat, the reverse step ups, the ankles. After that, all of a sudden the board feels pretty damn good. Then in dense, we're hitting the board once a week, 10 sets of 10 in 10 minutes. When you can do that with 25% of body weight. So when you hold a dumbbell or a kettlebell in front, it gives a measure of if your legs and patellar tendons are actually doing the work. So we've seen guys who maybe can quote unquote squat a lot of weight, but they can't jump high. They're not explosive and they have chronic knee pain. And they're so much weaker comparatively on a sitting back squat versus a tendon dominant full range of motion on the slant board. So when you hold a dumbbell or a kettlebell, for your elbows to actually stay above the thighs, it creates some strictness there. Now, you've also then played with, okay, what happens when someone can do 10 sets of 10 in 10 minutes with 25% of body weight? Throwing a barbell. So we talked about this. So why don't you discuss, I think bar on front, would make the most sense first, 10 sets of 5 we discussed for advanced dense.
Yeah, I love that 10 sets of 5 bar in front. That gives you an opportunity to load it up, but you're coming from the place of having the foundation rather than coming from, a lot of people come at this from like, oh, I've squatted double body weight or I've squatted a lot of weight. And so now I'm going to squat a lot of weight on the slant, and you're coming at it from that angle rather than coming at it from the side of body weight, from the side of control and being able to do the step ups where you're happy to sort of progress systematically through. I think that's a really important point, is that it is okay to get to being able to use a big weight on this. We're not saying it's good to be weak, but if we've avoided this position while we've built these big squat numbers, the big squat numbers aren't bad. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you've done that without having the foundation, then chances are, you're going to have these gaps in performance, these, niggles. So you lift, we've had.
Think of it as a nitro
tons
boost.
Of weight.
Yep. Think of it as a nitro boost to what you're doing, not asking you to stop your sport or to stop if you're a power lifter. We're having so much results with power lifters right now. It's absolutely insane. Guys who just assumed that like they would have to work through certain knee pain or that their numbers, stopped at a certain point. Look, if it has the power to jack up people's vertical jumps while reducing knee pain, it has the exact same power to jack up powerlifter squats. And we're seeing guys hitting just insane weights. So think of it as a boost to what you're doing. It's a good time to stop and point out ATG is not a sport. It's not a sport. No session takes longer than 30 minutes. That leaves you with a lot of room there to be yourself and see what you want to do. Now, look, I just do the 30 minutes. I'm just obsessed with doing the 30 minutes. I don't know if I don't know why, but I don't really like training longer than that. I think it's just because naturally with those 30 minutes, I feel so juiced up, so confident in my body that it's like, I'm ready to go to the basketball court and like play, you know what I mean? So I think it's because I come from a basketball background where I understand that if I can change my body in 30 minutes, that's going to give me an advantage on the court and with my skill versus if I have to train for 60, 90 minutes, mobility and all this stuff. And
I did that exact thing with the team, Ben, that, the Roosters, our most successful time, we had 20-minute sessions sometimes. Like they'd literally be in and out of the gym in 20 minutes, rarely over 30 minutes in season. And, we dominated the opposition. Guys were, players were asking our players after the game, like, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you so much, more physically dominant than we are? Like they were literally, talking about that. And our sessions, I believe our sessions were the shortest. We had the smallest gym in the league as well. So we didn't have all the gear. And we had the shortest sessions and we got results. So, that was with rugby as well. So don't just think, people listening into this, that, oh, this applies to basketball and they don't need to be big. Like I've, literally used this approach with heavy athletes that need to be really strong. Now I didn't have the movement vocabulary at that time and I ignored a lot of the niggles and that players had because I just didn't have the knowledge of how to overcome them. I had little pieces of what's now the ATG system, but I didn't have this coherent understanding of how to heal and rebuild. So I love the time management, and athletes love it too, like in the way that you're talking about, to get on with your day and feel juiced up. That was the goal for our sessions, like leave full of energy rather than leaving drained and even
if you are drained, it's drained from 30 minutes. So, you get more of a second wind later. And it's just a
100%.
different way of looking at it. Like we're trying to move the needle on strength, but we're trying to move the needle on strength in a tendon dominant way, and in a way that we're targeting those areas and muscle fibers that we really need for athleticism. So we have to go and really start back from the beginning with this exercise. And Drew will put some visuals of me doing this. The greatest knee longevity case of all time is George Hackenschmidt. There's pictures of him at 75 years old jumping over a hurdle, which is half his height. There's verbally, so he was doing that at age 75. There's pictures of that. And at 87, till his death, he was reportedly still able to jump over chairs. And his squat was standing there, no slant board, meaning actually handling all that strength through the foot, which is actually kind of our process from zero to dense to standards, like how we do with our step ups. And the bar is behind his back with his arms like strict, his hands close together. So the bar's not drooping under the butt. It's right smack against the body behind the back. And he's lowering down, completely covering the calves. And his records in that lift still stand. And he still has the greatest knee longevity case ever. Now, if someone stands there and even holds a PVC pipe, and if you tell the person, okay, you have to hold that PVC pipe behind your back and you have to get your hamstrings to completely cover your calves. And if you correlated that with knee pain and knee injuries, you would see incredible things. There's not one fucking study done on this yet. Excuse my French, but that's how much severity I have to put on this. This is how backwards our society has gone. This is why knee injuries have skyrocketed to epidemic levels, because we've gone literally away from the truth and away from the best results. And if you avoid the knees and you avoid lifting your heels and getting that full range of motion, you're simply asking for weaker tendons, weaker ligaments, weaker muscles around your knees, and more problems. That you're directly asking for this. Of course, working through pain is not the way. That's why the concept of us rebuilding from the ground up, the regressions we've figured out, how the ATG split squat scales, these are revolutions for training that the most fragile people who think they can't do that, who right now couldn't, can get there. So my whole career is built off that. And now I'm jumping so much higher. So it's like, why revert back to quote unquote traditional training? Traditional training, Olympic lifts and power lifts are their own sports. Power lifters we're seeing skyrocketing. Olympic lifters, we're also seeing the same thing. And if Olympic lifters in America, for example, where we visually have smaller VMOs and way more knee pain and surgeries, if we wanted to compete in Olympic weightlifting with China, who's kicking our ass and their VMOs are the size of footballs, all we need to do for our accessory work is apply these concepts. So I think that's like a severe way of looking at it, but it's like the greatest knee longevity case ever. His strictly measurable, can't cheat it exercise, because you fall on your ass if you try to sit back. And if you try to lean too far forward, you fall forward. 0 studies done on it. This is why academia is just not for me, because it's brutally failed us. It failed me. And now I saved me and others, not with academia. So I'm sure as hell not going back. But we're also, with ATG, we're directly paving the way for academia. Here's something you could study. Here's something exactly measurable. We're handing it on a platter. So this would represent an advanced option, again, once the standard is met. So the whole thing was knee numbers, that 10 sets of 10 with 25% of body weight in 10 minutes, or then in standards, being able to do sets of 20 reps in a row with 25% of body. That's really a baseline number, which opens the door to the barbell and to the actual hack squat. Have you tried this one yet? I mean, that's one of the cool things about what we're doing. You and I are both getting, more athletic as we speak. Have you tried that one yet?
I haven't done the full workout on that yet. I've been working on, like, even though those single leg ones, the challenge that you set with that, absolutely brutal. And to be honest, like, there's still a big gap there for me. I've been on the slant board, like I can use the slant board now, but I'm far from dominating it, especially on the single leg.
How many years do you honestly think you spent? Honestly, like what do you think your actual ratio is of intent, of effort with intent of, tendon dominant versus flat tendon dominant? Yeah. Let's just say tendon dominant versus non-tendon dominant, because a Peterson step up is tendon dominant too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like still probably 98 to like it's going to take a while.
And how old are you?
38. I started training when I was like 14. You know, my brother had a set of weights and, you know, maybe 12, and then probably got serious with it about 16. And yeah, it definitely helped athleticism, but it, you know, then it just didn't know how to get over the niggles. And then you get this pain cycle where you're not getting good muscle activation because the pain is there. So you're working hard, but you're like, you know, spinning the wheels. Like what was it like for you? Like when did you actually start slant work, and was it painful to start with? Did you push through, or like how were you?
I mean, I think it was like believe it or not, by age 10 I was training like really freaking hard, mostly with just you know, all kinds of speed ladders and jump ropes and jump soles and, you know, strength shoes and weight vests and ankle weights and all that, you know. But I kind of look at 10 to 20 was like destroying my body, and now 20 to 30 has been unraveling that. And so, you know, even for, you know, so even for me, like I'm making gains right now of like as we speak right now, Friday, I'm now filming because I've got it down to really strict measurable form for advanced, like I'm on standards right now. So for advanced people who can do the standard to go beyond standard, one of the ways, loading with a bar, there's so much potential just by now loading. And so for standards, instead of like the 10 set in standards, you basically just get to work up to a set. So I would say minimum 5 sets, maximum 10 sets. Somewhere in there, you should reach a set that you're happy with. In this case, we're doing 5 reps bar on front, rack the bar, then immediately 5 reps bar on back, then full recovery. And you just work your way up. There's so much potential with that one, but there's also so much potential with the actual hack squat. So, I mean, even for me right now, I'm just now working on the actual hack squat, and 65 pounds for 10 reps is unbelievable, you know? So even for me, it's very new, you know, it's been an unraveling process. And what's been important to us is that we can strictly measure it. You know, like each tool has to be, it can't just have, there can't be gray areas. The form has to be very exact. So it's taken me a while of playing with the hack to realize that, okay, the hack is really the advanced one, and you actually don't use slant board because it becomes very, with the weight behind your back, it becomes much more personal of letting your heels come up whatever they need. So the board for beginners, for single leg, which would be an advanced 0, for for loading up top, board, but it's also fun now to be able to mix it up and do the actual hack squat. Like me looking at it now, I'm like, geez, if I want to be like dunking when I'm 50, thank you, George Hackenschmidt. You made it really fucking obvious to do so, is to be able to do that without pain and be strong in it. So that's the trick. You know, we have these top things, but we also have every exact regression measurably to get there. So I'm freaking stoked getting more athletic, you know, now in my 30s, you know, having reached 20, having never grabbed a rim, you know, that's why my coaches like shit their pants when they see me now.
Going from a guy that could barely slap backboard and now is throwing down windmill dunks is unbelievable.
So yeah, what about you? You going to work on it this Friday?
Yeah, I'm back on limited equipment, so it's full focus on
so you don't have much of a choice.
Yeah. So
you could probably hold a sandbag or something. Although again, if you have a slant board with you, the single-legged squat on slant board is quite intense, you know, and we warm our way up for that in 0, you know, but
there's so many options now, which you don't actually need a lot of weight to work the legs super hard. It's really clear now, where for a long time it sort of felt like if you don't have 100+ kilos of bar and weight, then you can't really get a leg workout. Where now it's like, you know, you find a way to rig up the Nordics, you know, and if you're doing single leg slant,
all the
hack work, there's like no excuse now ever.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like, oh man, don't have a gym. Well, shit, you just changed your life. You know what I mean? And we don't, I still think that you and I would probably agree that we wouldn't want that to be more than like a third of yearly volume. You know, like there is, just as going to only body weight is going to force certain things, then being able to add weight on certain things, I think it creates a lot better results than just doing the exact same thing all the time, you know? So that's why even like in standards, you know, based on my mood on Friday, I could now work, the front to back with the bar or the hack. And I'll tell you 100% factually that I'll be doing both, because on Friday, it's a slightly shorter workout on Friday because you have 2 legs rather than Monday being step up single leg, Wednesday being split squat single leg. So I'm definitely doing both of those bad boys. I mean, I can't wait, and it allows you to push to that full effort, but with the end result being more tendon dominance, more athleticism, more of that elusive, VMO, which if you're someone who doesn't have them naturally, it's just so much different trying to build them. And now if you're someone who does have it naturally, now you can get to just like totally, freak stuff. The freaks should be trying to break world records with this stuff.
You kind of point to that as being like the thing that really took off your vertical, right? And that even that standing dunk from the deep squat position, like people will do it, but they don't actually accelerate from the bottom. And I haven't really seen anyone be able to like smoothly accelerate, and maybe you can link in the clip, but that's still one of the feats. And you dunk off the slant board.
That was crazy.
Guys, yeah, you gotta be careful with that one.
that was fun.
What do you think about that? In terms of just pure impact on athleticism with the slant and being able to get out of that position fast.
I mean, it changes the nature in actual sports. Like you can kind of prepare yourself for a certain vertical jump or a certain start time, but how you can actually hold these angles in your joints is going to allow you to get, under defenders, get a faster start time in real world situations without having to think about it. You know what I mean? So that tendon dominance, it's like we talk about Michael Jordan, like he was born so beautifully, naturally tendon dominant stuff. He was the most knees over toes player in NBA history relative to his size. That at 6'6", his knees are practically hitting the floor all the time. You know what I mean? And then you see the stiffer, less athletic players, and those knees never come close to the floor. They're all stiff up top. So it gives you leverages for actual in-game scenarios, not to mention then being able to handle your sport without the various impacts being, so injurious. So it's like, okay, if the most agile guys, their knees are getting so, deep in these positions on the court, and then our squat is sitting back versus slant board, so it's like seated good morning, Romanian deadlift, single leg back extensions. These kind of things allow you to build up those posterior chain, not to mention, Nordic. You can build up your posterior chain separately and isolated. And that's a whole nother subject that we'll get into. That's a whole nother podcast that we'll start on next week with the hips. We have like 7 minutes left. So I did want to say that, like, George Hackenschmidt, it's not like he was just this outlier, because the greatest now current jumping longevity case that we actually have videos of is Kadur Ziani. And that guy's the most knees over toes jumper ever. He's a body weight representation of exactly what we're talking about. Now he has a thinner frame. So again, if Kadur as a professional dunker wanted to be professional in a team sport that required more muscle mass, he wouldn't really have to change anything. He would just cycle from the body weight to then learning how to add loads, you know what I mean? And the more muscle would develop. But talk about, tendon dominance, still dunking at 47, measurably had over a 50-inch vertical jump, and was literally, I mean, have you seen how, like, his crazy knees over toes ability?
Yeah, he's phenomenal in his feet, like his ability to get that dorsiflexion.
Yep.
And he's worked so hard on that, and he continues to work hard on it. It's like the pride of his training. If you check out his stuff on Instagram, there's so much just working his feet and his ability to get his knee over his toe by his ankle, just having extreme function. And yeah, that it carries over and it's working, and can do those duck walks, and to be doing that stuff at 47, and like he's been pushing it hard for a long time. It's not like he's been in comp.
Right. It's not like he's been avoiding life and waiting to be on social media when he was 47. No, he's been like trying to, he's been putting insane impacts into his body for 3 decades.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Hack. Like Kadur reminds me of Hack in that.
Yeah.
It's almost like our ATG system at the, in terms of the knee is like, we're making it accessible so that people could be like these kind of cases, but it's almost like they instinctively knew this stuff and were able to get to these end things without knee surgeries on the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just think that having that clarity that it's not like it stands alone. Like it's powerful in itself, and it doesn't have to be a percentage of your back squat, and it's not about that. Like it actually works in itself. And Hackenschmidt was a great wrestler as well. If you look up his history, he was largely
right. He was a wrestler. He wasn't he wasn't a lifter. He was doing that to go be able to beat the shit out of people. Like, again, it's a big difference. That wasn't the sport. He was lifting for his sport. And if he had and did wanted to compete in powerlifting or these kind of things, Olympic lifting, I think he dabbled, in also these strong things. The point is, his body's like so built for it. And again, talk about thrashing life. George Hackenschmidt, again, wasn't running from life. So 87 still jumping over chairs. I mean, that's insane. The bulletproofing you have to have for that is very different than, just avoiding life. So he's an exact, representation. Same with Kaddour of what we're talking about. And that's why I keep, jumping off, ladders and stuff like that. I'm not trying to run from life. And on that note, I think we can summarize the reverse Nordic and sissy/KOT squat, whatever you want to call it, real fast.
Yep.
For me, the purpose of the reverse Nordic with these levels, which is 100% because of you, because for me, from couch stretch and me doing probably more ATG split squats than anyone in history, I was able to do the reverse Nordic. Now, I'm not saying it was easy. Now it's much easier. And I used to have to spend a lot more time doing the couch stretch to be able to do the reverse Nordic than now just doing the reverse Nordic once a week with its various, regressions. So for me, it's like, if you can achieve a range, that's cool. But if you can own that range, we're talking exponential reduction of injury, exponentially less time having to, and for my surgery knee, I definitely assumed I will always have to do more couch stretch on my left leg than my right leg. I'll simply have to, because of the surgical alterations, there's this mass in there. I would show people the mass. So, so that's why I have to do. Wrong. Reverse Nordic and its regressions, unreal now. And I've done it for people like Cold now and this and that. And so, I mean, to me, that's the main purpose, is that we're going from couch stretch and then we're owning our couch stretch. So couch stretch in 0 and then regressed, reverse Nordic, just 5 sets of 5 once a week in 5 minutes in dense, so that you can't really like go to a max and then allowing yourself to see where you're at in standards. What do you think?
Yeah, I think being able to get into that position and the adaptations that you get in the tendons and ligaments is like a prerequisite. And for people who think, I can't really do these hack, things and slant board, as you progress with the sissy or the natural knee extension, the reverse Nordic, you will unlock those. You will get adaptation in the tissues. And at the same time, you may not be able to start with this. Like, that's the whole idea of the sequencing. And there is a regression, that you will be able to start at some level in the reverse Nordic.
Exactly.
But if you do it at the wrong level, you definitely can cause challenges. I get those messages on Instagram, hey, like I've started doing, reverse Nordics and things are playing up, like with the meniscus or with the tendons. And like, yeah, that's not how you do the system. Like that's really important for people to know as
or
well.
Or just doing the same thing every day. Tendons take longer to recover.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So, and that's why I covered these last in just a couple of minutes, because it's like, these are finishing touches. These are not the things we're doing all the volume on. These are finishing touches that learning how to scale them to your level, doing them at the right times, can then make the rest of life so much easier. And that's knees over toes squat, sissy squat, whatever you want to call it. You could almost call them two different things. When we balance, like Tom Platz would balance and then, really lean back, that's one of the options we allow. We also allow, where you don't have any hands and it's just how strong you are. Number one, I don't think it's mandatory. Number two, that changed my life on the basketball court. Like that's the kind of stuff that then makes basketball like a joke, that you even can get into a sticky situation and not buckle. And again, those things really scale. And again, with the reverse Nordic, we're only talking about, like a very gentle amount of volume with scaling. And with the sissy squat /KOT squat, we're only talking about in body weight phase. And it gets us into that toe dominance as well. Like it really gets us into the big toe and really like owning our own body. So it has its own purpose at its own time, and it's still optional. And we're not actually trying to like jam all these things. Like we don't do, for example, we talked about 3 different exercises today. We don't do these, like all in the same session with load and all this stuff. So, all right, I'm out. 20 minutes. Any concluding thoughts?
Just do these exercises, be patient with them, work on them. And the worse you are at them now, the more important it is that you listen to this podcast again and just make the decision to do it. Yeah.
Right. Whatever you're worst at right now, you're actually kind of illuminating. Like, I'm not in this to try to make life like all pillows and clouds. It will be by comparison. I'm in this because we're heading toward knee replacements and disasters as a population. And we can totally unwind that stuff. So listen to ankle numbers, listen to knee numbers part 1. This podcast is more like the cherry on top. And it's almost the things that we like should have been able to do, you know, as kids and stuff that then would have made life a joke by comparison. So this is now like the finishing touch stuff. But really, I would base this whole podcast on George Hackenschmidt. It must be known. He's the greatest knee longevity case ever. And we have gone in the opposite direction of helping people be more like George. So good work, brother.
Thank you.
All right.